welcome back everyone. We have another recap video. This is my round 3 game from the Reykjavik Open. And I actually want to start by showing my preparation from this game. I was playing FIDE Master Michael Dougherty from Canada. Dougherty? Apologies for maybe butchering the pronunciation. But this is an older player who I found games dating back for the past couple decades. And before the game, I spent a few hours trying to just be really well prepared against the sidelines that he plays. And I'm going to start by showing my prep file for this game. I'll switch scenes here so we see the study. I initially prepared this in ChessBase, but I brought in the PGN to Lichess. So the couple hours leading up to the game, I was reviewing basically all the potential lines I could be expecting based on what he's played in the past. And I do want to show just a couple interesting trappy lines I was preparing. I decided to start with d4. And one potential variation that he could play, actually the main thing in his repertoire, is a pterodactyl opening, which is starting with this move c5. And this is a line I actually covered in a St. Louis chess club lecture from a different move order, actually from the Sicilian move order with knight c3 on move 2. But essentially it transposes. And there's a really cool line here for white that he's had a few games here in the past after queen a5, bishop d2, black wins back the pawn, and then a really venomous move from white, knight d5, with the idea to play bishop b4 and harass the queen, and also tie down the queen to defending c7. And if black's not careful here, if we imagine a move like knight f6, there's bishop b4, queen c6, and bishop b5, and surprisingly, the black queen is trapped in this position because if queen takes b5 or queen e6, the only two safe looking squares, there's knight c7 with the amazing fork. So I was looking a bit deeper here, like he's had games with b6 and bishop b4, and I was planning to go into this line, which Stockfish already gives as a very big plus for white. And my preparation even went a little bit further where I was just kind of getting a sense of the tactical ideas, queen g3, preparing knight c7. So anyway, I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole of my preparation, but I am leaving this in a public Lichess study. So if people want to analyze further, you can click the link in the video description and see all the fun, tricky lines I prepared for this game, which didn't actually happen in the game. So let's actually get to the game because it turns out that I was surprised as early as move 3. I played d4, g6, e4, bishop g7, knight c3. And I got excited here because my opponent reached for his c-pawn. I was expecting pawn c5, but he played the move pawn c6. And I was out of my pre-game preparation, but I did have a sense of what to do in this position. Now, I should note this was not a line I was expecting. I found no previous games from him in the database in this line, but this was a line I prepared vaguely for Hikaru after Hikaru played this against me in some online blitz game. May have been a few online blitz games. This is one of Hikaru's kind of pet opening lines. And I went ahead here and played the move knight f3. And after d5, I played the move h3. Now I'm realizing that I'm leaking all the notation and analysis here. I think I'm going to switch back the scene to just a larger board so I'm not leaking anything. If people have a preference, like what layout I should use, voice your opinion in the comments because I do want to cater to what people prefer. But again, I'm going to leave all my analysis in the Lichess study, so people are welcome to just kind of go through at their own pace and yeah, watch the video as they go as well. But getting back to this position, the point of playing h3 is to prevent the light square bishop from developing actively. And I'm trying to create a situation here where this bishop doesn't have a great home. For example, if black takes, and this is actually what happened in the game, takes, it's a little bit awkward for black to develop the bishop to f5 because there's knight g3. And there's cases where I can get like a favorable position where I either get the bishop pair or the bishop has to retreat back to a really passive square. So my opponent here played knight to d7, which is a common idea. The point is to play knight f6, trade a pair of knights, and get this knight to f6. But I respond with bishop to c4. And already black has to be really careful about potential tactics against the f7 pawn. And the natural looking move here is knight g f6 to just challenge the knight. But then this would walk into some funny lines. And I was calculating this during the game, and I'm not sure if I'd actually go for this, but there's a funny line, knight eg5, hitting f7. And if black plays a move like e6, then already knight takes f7 is looking really deadly because king takes f7, knight g5, king moves somewhere. King can't move to f8 because knight takes e6. If king e8, again, knight takes e6. And white's getting just a ton of attack for sacking the piece. And Stockfish is already giving a winning advantage for white here. So long story short, this would be dangerous to enter. Also, if castling, then there's potential to take on f7 and then knight g5. And it's kind of a headache for black to just allow these lines. So instead of my opponent playing knight gf6, my opponent played the funny looking move knight df6. With the same intention of trading the knights and just eventually getting the knight to f6. But in this case, I can just avoid the trade entirely. I played the move knight g3, which actually turns out to be a novelty. This move has never been played before. But it's very logical because the point is I'm just leaving black's knight in the way of the other knight. And in chess, we call this superfluous knights, where the knights kind of defend each other, but they also get in the way of each other. And now the only way for black to develop the knight on g8 is to go to the edge. And this is what happened. And this move is still very much playable because the idea is knight f5. And I really wanted to punish this move somehow, but I didn't find any way to create like any immediate threats, and I decided to just kind of slow play pawn c3, which this structure, it's very nice to have against the opponent's fianchetto because it does, in some sense, undermine the bishop. And the other reason why I played c3 was a prophylactic move. I was trying to prevent knight f5, because obviously this is black's main intention, is to trade some minor pieces. But if black goes for knight f5 here, then there's the idea to take, and after bishop takes f5, queen b3 would hit both pawns, which are just not sufficiently defended here. Yeah, so c3, tricky move, but here my opponent castled. I played knight e5. I was still trying to be prophylactic, still trying to pressure f7. And again, I have the same idea. If knight f5, I would take bishop take and queen b3, hitting both pawns. And yeah, white's just winning a pawn here. So yeah, I was setting up some landmines, but my opponent wasn't blundering so easily. And here knight d5 is played, which I think is a very reasonable square for the knight, just blocking the bishop. And the d5 square is like one of the nice center squares that black has under good control. So here, game continued. Very simple moves, complete development, castling, knight f5, take, and take. So essentially black got what he wanted, is the trade of knights, and finally developed the bishop. But the position is still really comfortable for white. And I thought the next several moves are like very intuitive and natural, just kind of improving the pieces that have yet to enter the game. And I didn't spend too much time thinking in this position because just might as well play an active improving move, queen f3. Here we see queen d6, rook e1, rook e8. And now it was a matter of trying to find some sort of plan in the position. I've improved my queen, improved my rook. It is a question where my bishop should develop to, because bishop d2 doesn't look so enticing. I don't want to put it to e3 or f4 and allow trades, and g5 would just probably ask to get forked. So I found a move here with just a simple plan of trying to expand my center pawns. And I should note here that white has a slight advantage because I control a bit more space with the center pawn on d4. And sometimes when you have a small space advantage like this, one of the typical plans is to try and increase the space advantage. And I played the move here, bishop to b3, just preparing to grab more space with the eventual pawn c4. And here my opponent played a funny move, bishop to c8. And I'll just show my annotation briefly here. I said LOL, but what else to do for black? It was actually a bit difficult for black to find any active plan. Like the rooks are standing behind the pawns. Black would love to expand, but it's really difficult to do so, and f6 doesn't look so attractive. So I think bishop c8 was kind of just a waiting move. And here I happily play c4, grab some space, forcing the knight backwards. I should note knight b6 just walks into a fork. So knight retreats back to f6, and now I complete development. Now the knight's no longer hitting the e3 square. My pieces are finding even more happiness. And again, my opponent played a funny looking move, bishop f5, just undoing the previous move. But yeah, again, just kind of waiting. And sometimes it's still tricky to make progress in these positions, because even though my setup is really nice, black's position is a hard nut to crack. And my strategy here was to just keep gradually improving. And generally, if I can fully optimize my pieces, that's what will lead to tactics. So I improved my worst place piece here with rook a d1. Opponent played knight d7. And I didn't want to trade the knights, even though this is a very playable move. I decided to play knight g4, keeping some pressure. And now I have ideas of knight h6. So if black's not careful here and just plays like a nothing move, then knight h6 is winning material, because black either has to take and allow the rook to get trapped, or after king h8, then I win material on f5. So my opponent thought for a bit and took on g4. I took back with the pawn. So even though we traded, and generally trades do favor the side that has less space, I didn't mind the trade because now I have the bishop pair, and I've also, in some sense, strengthened my kingside setup. There's ideas now of g3, king g2, rook h1, and later attacking on the file. And one thing I do want to point out about pawns, this is kind of an obvious thing, but not everyone has made this realization, is that pawns on the H or A files are half as powerful as pawns on the B through G files. And the reason for that is a pawn on the H file only controls one square. Pawn, in this case, on the G file controls two squares. So that definitely like crossed my mind at some point, is that my pawn is a little bit happier towards the center. But here, game continued, queen c7. I attack the queen with bishop f4, queen b6. And here I played a move which was a bit tricky. I spent a long time trying to figure out whether it was worth playing c5, but I didn't want to give black just an easy decision, like to move the queen, and then the ball is back in my court and I have to figure out what to do. So I played a more non-committal move here, queen g3. And this sets up a few landmines in the position. First of all, I create the battery with my queen and bishop. So there's already some ideas of bishop c7. And there are cases where like the queen could more easily get trapped if I do get this move in bishop c7 in combination with c5. But surprisingly, my opponent just cracked here and played a move which gave me a very strong tactic. Here my opponent played pawn c5. And my opponent actually told me after the game that right after he released his hand for playing pawn c5, he realized what is coming next. And after my next move, my opponent just resigned. So there's a very strong tactical blow in this position. If you don't see it already, feel free to pause the video and figure out white to move, make black resign. But the move is to exploit this now more exploitable diagonal and play the move bishop a4. And very quickly saw this. This was actually one of the points of playing queen g3. I was waiting for black to play the move c5, and my dream came true. And the reason why this is so powerful is that I'm simply hitting the knight. The knight is pinned to the rook, and there's no easy way to resolve the pin. There's very few ways to defend the knight. If rook d8, then I have bishop c7 with the fork. And if queen d8, then black is just a sitting duck, a sad turtle. I would just take on c5, unleashing yet another pin. So here the knight is pinned in two directions, and white is winning a boatload of material coming up. So yeah, that was pretty much the game. Overall, I think it was a smooth game. It kind of goes to show one of the strategies is when you have a slightly better position, sometimes it just requires patience and gradual improving moves. And I was fortunate that my opponents just kind of cracked early, allowing the tactic. Here, the engine gives a5 for black, and then there's no immediate tactical blow, and the game would go on. One possible continuation is c5, queen a6, a4, where white still enjoys kind of a very healthy position, more space, two bishops. I would have good chances, but it would still be a fight. So that does it for this recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks again for your patience with the recap videos. When I got back from Iceland, my MacBook Pro stopped working, and I went through the whole kind of troubleshooting with the Apple Store. Eventually got it back functional, and that's what I use to edit all my videos and thumbnails. So stay tuned for more recap videos. If you have questions or feedback, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.